You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hello and welcome to Orange County's longest running business talk show. And yes, I'm your host, Rick Franzi. And do we have a good show planned for you today? Why do you ask? Fair question. Because Joshua Dominic is our guest. He is the CEO and co-founder of Dreamstar Lines. Dominic, Joshua, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And don't worry about that. I was in the Air Force and I'm very used to being called that, so it all works out. My middle name is Kirk, which doesn't make it any easier.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. Poor elementary school teachers never knew what to do with me.
My wife's a middle school teacher, so who knows? But it's not about her. It's about you, Joshua. Let's talk about, take us back in time. I want your origin story as a co-founder. What's the motivation, inspiration for you and the other co-founders to launch Dreamstar Lines?
Well, it's funny. So I have a bit of an unusual path into how did I get here? It started over 10 years ago when I was backpacking like many Americans do through Europe. Mm-hmm. And I took trains all over and I thought, boy, this is great. And I came back to the US and I thought, hey, greatest country in the world. Absolutely. But they have a good idea over there. We should do something about it.
Imagine
that. And then I did what most people who have a great idea do. And I did absolutely nothing with it and got back to whatever I was doing in my life. Fast forward a few years later, same deal. I go to Asia, same thought, same everything, did not do anything with the idea. And so, you're starting to see a theme, right? 2 makes it questionable. 3, it becomes a theme. Well, in 2019, I started traveling a lot for work in the medium distance segment. And I couldn't help but notice that it's really inconvenient. You're losing anywhere from 4 to 6 hours in your door-to-door time. And an overnight sleeper train, I would actually spend less time, waking time, traveling. It's like teleporting. So when I was in the Air Force, I called it going tarmac to tarmac. You fall asleep on the tarmac, you wake up on the other side of the tarmac. It's great, but not everybody can sleep on an airplane. It's much easier to sleep on a train. So pandemic hits, and I launch a business. I fail epically and decide, get a job, decide what I'm going to do next. And I realized I have this idea I can't kill, and it's Dreamstar Lines. It wasn't called that at the time, and I say, you know what? I'm going to set out to prove that this doesn't work, which is I'm told now is a bit unusual way to start a business. Yeah. So I've been wildly unsuccessful in proving it doesn't make sense on paper. And so now I'm putting it into practice. And that culminated with getting the MOU from Union Pacific.
So you're a co-founder. You must have infected a couple other people who agreed with your vision. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So it actually gets crazier than that. I found someone who was doing the same thing as me, a similar type of experience, traveling in the medium distance kind of segment. And they happen to live 10 minutes down the street from me.
Come on.
That's pretty much as faded as you can get. And so we met at a local Mexican spot right by John Wayne Airport, and we just chatted trains for an hour. And we both basically went, you're the first person I've talked to that's figured all this out. And so from there, we kind of started working together. And then at one point we said, why don't we partner on it? We want to do the same thing, and we have great complementary skill sets. So, and what was personally important to me, he's a good man.
Right. What a meant to be kind of scenario, though, where not only in your same zip code, but just close down the street from you. So let's unpack Dreamstar Lines then. What I'd like you to do is talk about who it serves, who would be interested in this, and what is the problem. Restate that in a little more detail, and then help me to really understand in your mind's eye who are the people that would get the most value out of engaging with your company as you kind of scale it up.
Yeah, so I think who this is for is, broadly speaking, travelers. So how we think about who is traveling between, let's call it the Bay Area and Southern California. Typically, there's kind of 2 categories that we think will be useful. So both myself and my business partner have been the business traveler, who tends to be a little more price insensitive. So perhaps, for example, Tom, my business partner, he would have early morning meetings in San Francisco. He was based in Southern California. So for him, it was he would have to get up at 3 a.m. because of John Way's restriction on the flights, and then go all the way to LAX And it's just not a great travel day. So by the time you're halfway through your work day, you've had a full day of working. So that's one case of like a business person. Another would be a business person who's traveling for a longer time period and wants to bring their automobile. So one of the unique things that we're going to offer with Dreamstar is the ability to bring your car with you, called an auto ferry service. So this has been one of those cool things where we had some ideas about who would use it, and then we started talking to people, and they gave us ideas on how they would use it. So all the examples that I have are people coming up to me and telling me, this is exactly how I would use this. So those are kind of the two broad categories of probably business travelers who are going to get the most useful. People who need a car at the end of their destination, or people who don't want to get up. They hate planes and they hate driving. On the other end, you have people who are leisure travelers, right? Tourists that want to see both regions. This is a really easy way to see both San Francisco and SoCal without losing half of a day to travel. When your travel time is very, very limited, it can be super tough if you're burning, half of a day. I've experienced this firsthand in my own travels. I'm sure we all have, with how you have to book a travel day. One of the great things about our model is you don't need to worry about leaving work early to get on the train. You don't need to worry about getting the kids out of school. So you can actually have full days and then travel overnight, which brings me into the third category of who I think this is useful for, and that's families. So people traveling with kids, groups. That's often not a great situation in modern airports today. And I don't know about you, but as a child, I certainly didn't like being in long car rides. Whereas a train, you can walk around, you can do whatever. And I think that we offer a solution that will simplify things for families traveling between the two regions, especially when you layer in the fact that they'll be able to bring their automobile and all the things that they keep in their family car with them.
So that's interesting, because on Thursday I'm going on a business trip and I'm flying out of LAX and my flight leaves at 6 and I have my Lyft here to pick me up at 3:10.
Yep.
So exactly what you talked about with your partner.
And actually, I had a funny version of this. I was at an event at LA Tech Week, and I explained what I did, and the guy goes, I just flew from Marin. I got up at 3 a.m. When can I take your service? It's amazing the number of people you're like, I think this is a good idea. And then you see the excitement in people's eyes. This particular gentleman goes, I'd pay like $800 for that. Oh, okay. I think we're onto something here.
Yeah. Well, the other side of that is, as you were explaining it, is on one of the vacations we took when our kids were still under our house, is we went to Italy, and we made a decision to take an overnight train from Venice to Rome. Yeah. Rather than getting a hotel room, we just slept in a sleeper car and and so that was a value trade-off that we made, to your point about losing a day to travel. The way we did it was we just did it at night.
So I actually, there's a meta framework behind here that I can go in if you're interested. Essentially, it turns out people kind of choose how they choose to travel based on like 5 things. So it's price, convenience, scheduling, comfort, and environmental impact. Now, everyone's going to have their own different weighings of each of those variables on things they care about or don't care about. And you could even maybe say 6, like fringe benefit. But generally speaking, we weighed kind of our service offering against all those. And we come out pretty darn ahead, because you're going to have less waking time traveling on our trains. It's going to be a more comfortable experience. The scheduling is going to work with everybody's life, because everybody's got to sleep. And it's going to have the lowest environmental impact. So we win on all those things before we even started talking about price. So it's a pretty cool thing that we think the novelty will bring people to the train. And then when they discover the benefits, they're not going to want to travel any other way.
So I need to dig a little bit on the term, the train, because we already have a rail infrastructure in this country. To some degree, we have consumer-based train service.
Yeah.
What are you planning to offer? I mean, how do you integrate into that, or are you creating your own? Just explain to me the business model from that perspective.
Yeah, so we're focused on using pre-existing rail infrastructure. Most rail operations today are based on ultra long distances. So this is where Amtrak's bread and butter really is. Now they do have shorter routes, but the shorter routes tend to be structured around daytime travel service. So for example, you can go from San Luis Obispo all the way down to San Diego if you'd like, but that's a daytime service. So what we're focused on is the nighttime segment when the rails aren't really being used very much. And there's a bunch of benefits to doing it that way, and both as a operating business as well as for the consumer, because now you're not spending all day awake traveling. You can spend most of your journey asleep.
So are you, again, help me to understand, Joshua, are you going to have your own trains? Are you going to put a car on a train? What's the vision?
That's correct. So we'll be using the tracks that run between SoCal and the Bay Area, and we'll have our own trains that we will be putting on the tracks and run the service at night.
That sounds like a very ambitious project, my friend.
Thank you. It definitely was one of those things where I didn't know I couldn't do that. And then you just start kind of figuring things out and people go, how'd you figure that out? And you're like, I don't know, I just did.
Yeah.
I will say that my business partner, Tom, has been great. He's really good at figuring out these, we can do this, we can do that. And he's got a lot of expertise on how to think things through. And between the two of us, we kind of started going out and asking people, like, could we do it this way? And they're like, I never thought about it that way. Okay, great. So
how do you get access to the rail system?
So we've negotiated, we're currently negotiating, so I don't want to speak too much about that, for track access agreements.
Okay.
We signed an MOU with Union Pacific, which is, we kind of went viral in the spring of last year when we announced that. And we're currently negotiating with the track owners at the southern and northern terminus. The thinking here is we believe that we provide I hate to use this term, a win-win situation. So there are regional operators at each end, but what we'll be able to do is be the point that connects people from either end. So kind of bringing people into each regional transit center. And we can do so in a time when they're not, there's not a lot of people on the tracks at night, because there's just not a lot of demand to move short distances at night. Whereas us, because of what we're a longer distance, we can make use of the track.
And how are you procuring the actual physical train? What's that about?
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into the details of that.
Okay.
But I can say that we have found trains that we can use at a price that makes sense from a business use case perspective.
Okay. Wow. So your business model just keep spinning my gears. I love this because I agree with you, having again just been to Europe last summer with my wife. The way we got around was on the train system.
Yeah.
I mean, we just, rent a car. No, we need to get from one city to another. Let's find, look at all the choices we have. And we just did that. Very easy, very, and it avoids, to your point, the airport, which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Any scale airport, like I'm going to LAX on Thursday morning, you got to be ready for that experience.
One of the things that I'm very excited about, Waymo, and like the autonomous driving. So while we will be offering the ability to bring your automobile, it won't be a requirement. You don't have to do it. And literally not last week, Waymo just announced, hey, like we're going to be in LA now. So I think that's really going to be really, really cool, because one of the barriers for making train services useful is a lot of American cities, you do need an automobile to get around,
right?
Just because of the way they were developed, despite everybody's desire. The American cities just weren't built to be walkable pretty much outside the Northeast corridor, Chicago, maybe some parts of Detroit and San Francisco.
Yeah. Sprawling cities.
Yeah.
Well, I used to have a responsibility. I live in Orange County, and I needed to get to the Valley to get to Burbank monthly for a meeting.
Yeah.
And I was able to take Metrolink.
Yeah, it's great. I've taken that line, Burbank.
Yeah. And it got me right close enough that I could then walk to the hotel where the meeting was. And it was so much better than driving, going looking at the 5, seeing all the cars in the rain and going, oh my God, I think I'm gonna take a nap on the way home. It's like fantastic. So.
Oh yeah. Tom and I actually, we had an event in San Diego. We took the train down there. It was great.
What a ride too. It was beautiful and stress-free.
Most people in Orange County don't even know that that's an option. Like, it sounds crazy, but like that's how we've conceptualized the business problem that we have, is how do we get mind share? How do we get people going like, oh, I can do this? Like I actually think that's the problem, that problem's a strong word. That's the challenge that's in front of us. How do we get people to think like, ooh, I could take that?
Yeah.
And what we've kind of decided to do is, this is the way I like to think about it. So it's 2005. The EV1, GM's attempt at making an electric vehicle has completely floundered.
Right.
It's 2005 and you want to sell electric vehicles. How do you do it?
You're asking me?
Yeah, like how do you do it? And so there was a small company at the time who said, well, what if we made it like a really cool vehicle and we made it really, really nice. And then we took those profits and we reinvested it into making EVs cheaper, cooler, nicer than the status quo in terms of travel options. And that's something that we think is going to work really, really well for our train service. And we plan to provide a very premium experience that'll be superior to any way that people are used to transporting between two endpoints.
And I don't remember the exact term, but you had a very clear length of travel in mind for your service. Medium?
Yeah, medium distance is what I would call it.
Medium distance, okay.
So this is broadly speaking, it takes you at least half a day to a full day to get there.
Okay.
It tends to be between, and then these are rough parameters, but that's the way I think about it in terms of time. Because I actually think, and by the way, people have all sorts of different reasons they will find this service valuable. To me, I'm a huge time guy. So the idea that every day I spend an hour winding down to go to bed, and I spend an hour in the morning getting up, taking a shower, doing whatever, having breakfast. So if I can combine those things that I'm already doing plus sleep and also get a journey out of it, I can make a whole lot more of the 2 days around that, assuming, you know, I can get a good night's sleep. So part of that me as like a CEO, this needs to be something that I'm willing to go to sleep on and get a good night's sleep on. So how do we design that experience so that, you know, I've taken some budget sleeping accommodations and you don't sleep and it's horrible and you don't want to do that. So for us, the standard is, okay, what kind of things that can we do along the journey to delight people? Go, like, I want people to step off my train and feel optimistic about the future of America. So some of the ways we can do that, circadian friendly lighting. I hate getting blasted with bright fluorescent lights. So why don't we put softer lighting that has a low, you know, visual acuity angle so that when you're in the train, you're very relaxed. And if you can do that, you can create an environment where people go, I did not know I could be this comfortable while I'm traveling. And that's, I think, what we're going to do. And if things go right, 10 years from now, you'll be able to take a Dreamstar Lines train all over the country.
And that's one of the benefits of a big country. There's a lot of medium distance trips that people are taking from here east. You pick the destination. Like I'm flying to St. Louis, which feels like a medium distance trip in some ways. I mean,
yeah. So the kneecap for us is, you know, how long are people willing to stay on our train awake? I don't know. We don't know where that is.
Right.
We're pretty confident that, you know, to start an hour awake on each end, it's still less than you would be any other way of traveling. But I don't know. It's a big open question. I don't know if people will be willing to do, you know, 18 hours. Amtrak has a couple popular longer routes.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just different. It's a big space and we get to explore it.
Yeah. And it's a proven model in the sense that, to your point, other parts of the world have perfected the train travel experience, at least got consumers conditioned to use them. And we were very easy to adapt to it once we got there. I would think also Europeans who are coming to the US who may want to get from point A to point B, your option would be a very natural option for that.
It's actually very funny you bring that up. So oftentimes I'll meet with Americans and Europeans, and it's two very different conversations. The Europeans immediately are like, yeah, naturally, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas the Americans are like, this could never work. And my favorite is when they're colleagues at senior levels, and they have wildly diverging opinions. And because it's interesting to watch like the interaction between the two, where like, I don't want to say they start arguing, but they start being like, no, well, they can do this, and then here's these benefits. So part of the problem that I have as a CEO is how do we, I don't want to say Americanize the concept, but how do we do it in a distinctly American way where people are like, oh, I want that. I want to do that. And we've designed a lot of things to do that. The ability to bring your car. People love their automobiles.
That is a home run.
So I think it's a no-brainer. Do it that way. Provide a really nice accommodations so that you're like, hey, I'm really comfortable and relaxed. so that when you step off the train, you feel reinvigorated and ready for your day as opposed to exhausted. I just took a red eye to New York. It was horrible. It was not great. I did not sleep a wink. And, but to have the ability to just wake up fully rested and be like, hey, this is good. I'm good to go. And designed with, being a premium experience in mind, we think it'll appeal to a lot of Americans who value their time, want to be comfortable, and want to be around other people that want to take the train. Like,
right. There's a community that can be developed there. There is, yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that, and I think our country would benefit from people not moving so fast and spending a little bit of time getting to know strangers in some ways, especially in different parts of the country. So,
yeah,
kudos to all what you're trying to do, Joshua. This is a very ambitious, big idea, and I love it. And I love that it's originated out of Southern California, where a lot of good ideas have started, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have an estimate of when you think the line will be up?
Well, we have a very ambitious schedule, and there are some things that need to fall into line, but we've been told it's ambitious, but not impossible. We would like to be operating December of next year. There's some big hurdles that we need to overcome to do that. But if doors keep opening the way they have, that seems like an ambitious but possible timeline. So
fantastic. Well, you'll have to have you back on for that event. Keep Critical Mass Business Talk Show in mind. If someone wants to connect with you, Joshua, directly, or learn more about Dreamstar Lines, how do they do that?
So we have a website. There's a form you can fill out. I review all the submissions. You can just leave me a message. You can try to reach me on LinkedIn. I wouldn't recommend it. I get a lot of people who want to sell me things that are not relevant to me, so you might get lost in the noise.
Okay.
But I do check all of the people who outreach. So whether you want to work together or sign up for the wait list, you should see after our announcement last week that we'd be working with BMW's Design Works to do our designs. I get quite a few pings of those, and let's just say the wait list is growing very long, and I'm super excited. It's been very validating to see.
Well, I'm glad that we could help you a little bit to keep the momentum and accelerate the momentum that you have for this business. I so much appreciate the fact that you've taken time to be a guest on our program, and want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, Rick, honestly appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun.
And I'd like to thank the audience. You've been a part of Orange County's longest running business talk show and podcast. Joshua's episode joins our catalog of 1,500 plus shows that we've done over the years. If you happen to be an Orange County entrepreneur and you want to share your story with our audience, it's super easy. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If we're already connected, send me a message. And in the connection request, let me know that you have an interest to be a guest. And between Haley, our producer, and myself, we'll be happy to get you ready to be on a future episode of our show. Until the next time we all have a chance to be together, I hope your business decisions continue to move your companies in positive direction.